understand you're quite the dancer. Did you really win an Irish dance competition?
It was the halftime of the Women's Patriot League Championship game. Went out on the court, and I took Irish dancing when I was a little bit younger, second, third grade, and that training kind of came back and was put to fruition. I got my dad like a jacket for it, so I told him, I said, hey, here's the ROI for the Irish dancing classes, and I was a dance minor at Holy Cross. Took classes my senior and my fifth year, to be able to stay there the extra year. So, good investment down the line.
How much is the dance stuff a love? How much of it is it something that you embrace because it helps you with football, and how does it help you?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of everything. There's a lot of stretching. When you're doing ballet, the warm-ups and whatnot, it's good for ankle mobility, and it's it was a lot of fun. You got to diversify your resume somehow, and obviously it's good for footwork. Being light on your feet and whatnot. So it was a pretty cool experience. I was very grateful for it.
We go to Ron in a second.
Christo, I think you were Coach Belichick's first political dinner. What was that process like, and then what was unique about the conversations and individual meetings from him with him after that?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I had a good relationship with his daughter Amanda Belichick, who was the women's lacrosse coach at Holy Cross, and kind of getting connected through that. And the process happened pretty quickly from kind of the first conversation to getting here on the visit, and it's it was like a dream, to be able to play at this type of institution at this level for not just Coach Belichick but Coach Friend and all the coaches on this staff. It's pretty surreal, and I wake up every day extremely grateful for the opportunity that I have here, and I know others share the same sentiment.
Christo. Adam in the front row over here.
Christo, hey, Adam Smith in South Carolina. Just want to ask you, how well have you gotten to know Gio Lopez like? What is that working relationship like? And what is your view of the quarterback position in general with this team? How is that shaping up?
Yeah, well, Gio's a great competitor, and obviously, had a great career at South Alabama. He's a pretty good golfer, very good club head speed. But just like everything, everything's a competition. Day in, day out. So, everyone's really just focused, taking it one day at a time. No one's really viewing anything as starter, not starter, or whatever that is. Guys were brought in here to compete, and the message has been sent that you're going to earn everything every day. So you got to come with your A game, and iron sharpens iron. So it's good to be in this position where you have so many great players in the quarterback room and really all the rooms in general, where guys are just going to be pushing each other every day.
So what kind of golfer is he?
Just violent with the hips. He can hits it very hard. It was very impressive. We were at Top Golf last Saturday, and we're having a long drive competition.
We go to Mike in front of you.
Christo, coming from a smaller school on the FCS level to here, school on the Power 4 level, what was the area where you saw the biggest sort of jump in just the things that were available to you, the things that you could do here coming to Carolina?
Yeah, obviously the resources that we have here at North Carolina are pretty tremendous, from the facilities to the academic support, and obviously having a graduate school here. So the resources were a huge advantage, and just being able to have that at your disposal, being able to come in here pretty much whenever was a huge advantage. At the end of the day, football's football. It's that's just kind of really how it is. Obviously, the level of athletes that are here are pretty impressive. But we was able to play with a lot of really good players at Holy Cross. A guy, my buddy just got drafted this year, and whatnot. So overall, the resources is probably the big thing. But what we have here and what we're building right now, kind of building that foundation day by day, brick by brick. It's it's truly special, and excited to be a part of it.
Brian, you mentioned a connection to Belichick's daughter. Was the connection to Carolina or the connection to him? Like, how did you get involved in that recruiting process? And when you found out he was taking this job, did you get a call into him, or were you already looking at trying to get to Carolina or a different P4?
Yeah, obviously, where you kind of go in the portal, you mark out, what type of schools you're interested in, and as you kind of go through the process, your vision becomes more clear, and Carolina kind of fit all the bill. And obviously with Coach Belichick coming here, the pedigree that he brings, the greatest coach of all time, undisputed. It's it's pretty remarkable. And I had Amanda Belichick reach out to me and kind of get me connected here, and then from there go through that process, get evaluated, and it was a perfect fit, and just you're here now, and it's pretty great.
You mentioned greatest coach of all time. Is that intimidating? I mean, there was 18-year-olds in that room, 22-year-olds who've witnessed this whole career at the Patriots and seen all the Super Bowls, I'm sure. And now that guy's your coach. Is it somewhat intimidating, or what's the?
Maybe at first when you see him, it's all you see is the Super Bowls that he's won. But when you get here and you see the way that he cares, you see the way that he approaches the game, you see how hard he works. There's no question why he has the success that he has, and the attention to detail, the emphasis on fundamentals, and really just kind of creating competition for the guys. That's what's getting built here, and guys are embracing it, and he treats everybody with tremendous respect, and it's been great.
I want to hear from WRL. Christo, how you doing?
Wonderful.
Just curious, you kind of answered my questions. I'm going to go a different route. What's it been like for you and the players just kind of seeing all the headlines and the news and the noise from the outside, which might be very different reality from the one you're living here inside the building?
Yeah, outside noise is a part of playing college football. That just comes with the territory. It doesn't really have any effect on us or the day to day. We're really just focused on competing, getting better, and again, just kind of stacking those days. Everything else is just kind of noise, and we're just worried about keeping the main thing the main thing.
Jeremiah?
Jeremiah Holloway with Inside Carolina. I wanted to ask you about Will Friend, who's of course coaching the offensive line unit. How would you describe his coaching style, and then also I guess the culture he's trying to implement into the offensive line? Yeah,
he's a very intense coach. He's breeding toughness, but the attention to detail that he brings, it's truly remarkable. He's teaching the game in a way that's allowing us to conceptually understand everything that's going on, and on top of that, just the emphasis on the toughness, the effort that that you need to bring day in and day out, and really setting the standard, and kind of understanding the team goes as we go, so we have to be the ones that set the pace. And Coach Friend has coached tremendous amount of NFL talent, and he knows how to do it, and we're very, very fortunate to have him here. He does an awesome job, and actually Coach Corey does an unbelievable job as well, working in that room, and we're truly blessed to have so many great coaches around us, wanting us to get better, and promoting us to be our best.
You have a second row?
Brian Devine with the Daily Fair. How was acclimating to a new school environment then, and has it been what you expected?
Yeah, I think the biggest change was, not having a Boston winter, which was pretty nice. So, getting school canceled with about an inch of snow, and then having it be like 70 degrees, a couple of days later was, pretty remarkable. So in that ways, it's been great. But, the guys that we have here are tremendous, and we're really building something great, and for everything that North Carolina is, the school, and the history that the school carries. Truly the greatest thing is about the people, and that's that's our teammates, that's the support staff, that's the coaches. It's everyone is aligned on the same mission, with the same goal, and everyone's really just committed to taking it one day at a time, but giving everything they have.
And the last one from Michael here in the front.
Hi, Christo. As I mentioned, Coach, you're coming into an offensive line that returns 3 starters in Banfield, Lasky, Green. It seemed like you were doing a lot of snaps with the ones during spring practice. What has it been like getting to know those 3 returning guys, and also getting to know a lot of the guys that Coach has brought in from the portal and from high school?
Yeah, again, the big thing here is competition. You got to earn everything every day, and guys are going to rotate whatever it is, whatever position. The position versatility, it's a huge thing. Being able to play with play with everyone, play both sides, you know, whatever that is. And, you know, we have such a great, you know, great room. You know, everyone's doing such a tremendous job. You know, Blasky being able to, you know, step up, be the leader that he is. You know, Trey, you know, Aiden, everyone's doing, you know, a tremendous job. And, you know, everyone's kind of, you know, gelling together. And, you know, again, it's, you know, the iron sharpens iron. You know, when we're running those bouts, it's, you know, it's tough. You know, it's about the most tired you're ever going to get. But, you know, you see the guy to the left, to the right, you know, giving everything they have. And it speaks to kind of the, you know, the culture of the whole team, where everyone's pushing each other. Everyone's, you know, you're suffering, but it's a good thing. You know, that's what ultimately is going to pay off. You know, it's going to pay dividends later in the season, and, you know, everyone's embracing it.
Good stuff, Christo. Appreciate it. We're going to bring our wide receiver join the ship now.